Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio, and although I am still a little bit croaky, I want to talk to you about something today. You see, I've done a couple of videos about whether you should buy Sword and Shield, well, Sword or Shield, and I did a video about whether you should go for the Nintendo Switch Lite. I've done a couple of these kind of videos. And over time, they end up proving pretty gosh darn popular. Well, there's one that I haven't actually had a look at, and I think it's about time we had a look at it today. And honestly, there's two ways to look at today's video. Way number one, should you buy the Pokémon Sword and or Shield with the expansion pass combined set? Or why it represents the best investment opportunity in terms of Pokémon video games that we've seen in a while. Now, essentially, the deal with this is that you get one cartridge, and loaded onto that cartridge, you will get either Pokémon Sword or Shield with the full expansion pass, which is, of course, comprised of the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra, both of which are out and have been out for a little while. Now, one thing I really appreciate as a Switch owner and someone who games a lot on the Switch, because this is not the case with every game, it says clearly at the bottom, this game card includes both the Pokémon Sword game and the expansion pass. You do not need to purchase or download the expansion pass separately. And I appreciate that, because it's kind of annoying when you go and buy a physical cartridge, but the people who made the game only put like half the game on there. Like I went and bought BioShock on the Switch, the BioShock trilogy, but I had to do like a huge, some ridiculous, many gig download before I could actually play any of the games. You can't just play them off the disc, which is annoying. I very much appreciate the fact that you can here. It makes me happy. Now, in terms of a saving, you're not getting a saving. So over on the official Pokemon website, or the official Pokemon store, as it were, this is being sold for £77, but you would pay £50 for the game and £27 for the expansion pass. It is actually 1 penny more than you would pay buying them both separately, because they'd be $49.99 and $26.99, which would come out as $76.98. So, boo, etc. But you get everything on one cartridge, which is awesome. And as a quick side note here, in years to come, we're talking kind of 10, 15 years down the line, and look, I know that sounds like a very long time, and it is, obviously it is, but one of the things that Cerebi reminded us of this week is that Ruby and Sapphire just had their 18th anniversary. If Ruby and Sapphire were citizens of the United Kingdom, they would be allowed to legally drink. How weird is that? The answer, of course, is extremely weird. So, yeah, that happened just 3 days ago as I record. And the thing is, I mean, let's use one more example, all right? Let's use another example. How about Pokemon Platinum? Now, you may or may not know that in Pokemon Platinum, you can actually catch the Reggie Trio, like my boy Regirock. But you can only do so with an event Regigigas. How do you get an event Regigigas nowadays? Well, you don't. You don't get an event Regigigas nowadays. You've either got one or you don't. So actually, over time, these Pokemon games become worse and worse as functionality is lost. The fact of the matter is, if you buy Pokemon Sword or Shield in 20 years' time, pop it into your Nintendo Switch or backwards compatible thing, maybe the world will change between now and then. Maybe you will be able to buy the expansion pass, but as it stands at the moment, that's not the way it works. You can't buy DLC for old games on old consoles, really. So this is going to be the way that you can just have on one cartridge a way to just play the entire game. And honestly, I intend picking one up for that exact reason. In the future, maybe my kids want to play it, maybe I want to go back and visit, and hopefully I've got my Switch with a DLC loaded onto it, but there's no guarantee that I will. So you know what? This seems like a pretty cool thing to have. Now, in terms of the DLC, quite frankly, it comes highly, highly recommended from me. I have done reviews of both pieces of the DLC. I will link them in the description. I know not everyone is quite as high on them as I am. I am extremely high on them. I think they are phenomenal. I think the Crown Tundra is better than the Isle of Armor. The Isle of Armor, for what it's worth, is very much... It's pretty much a case of... I'm going to run around, I've got some quest stuff to do, and then there's a tower where I get a legendary and life is good. It's cool, I like it, but I understand reservations some people might have. The Crown Tundra is a far better piece of DLC. It really feels like an open world Pokemon game. Now, there is a lot of catching legendaries, of course. Why would there not be? That is kind of the hook of it. So yeah, there is going to be a not insignificant amount of time spent popping a Pokemon down to hopefully 1 HP with False Swipe, making sure they are paralyzed or asleep, and then just going a little bit nuts. But, you know what? I'm kind of into that. Again, I know not everybody is. I know that there are a bunch of people out there who don't love it so much. I absolutely do. One of the criticisms that we see here in terms of this package is, well, hang on a second, why am I paying £77 or the American equivalent for this game when the DLC should have been included on the cartridge? Why am I not paying £50 or $60 for the complete game, including the DLC? Now, I know some people watching, I'm not going to change your mind, and that's fine. You are, of course, entitled to your opinion, like I'm entitled to mine. I'm going to give you my opinion, and if you don't buy it, you don't buy it. Both my opinion and the game. But as far as I'm concerned, these were developed after the game came out. They were proper DLC developed later. And I know a lot of people are not happy that the National Dex was not in there from the start, and it's still not completely in there. My boy Donphan still isn't in the game, and I love Donphan, but I don't think that's an argument we need to get into today. In terms of adding content, both the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra, they add a fair few hours to the game, honestly. My Pokémon Sword, including both the DLC, I am well over 100 hours. Now, just going through the game normally without the DLC, I spent about 50 hours on my initial playthrough. And if I compare that to other games I played through recently, that is more time than I spent in Pokemon Platinum, and it's more time than I spent in Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. It is not more time than I spent in Heart Gold, but I don't necessarily think that is a particularly fair comparison because, well, I don't think I'm spoiling a very, very old game here, but when you complete Heart Gold, they're like, only kidding, now basically go through the first region all over again. Oh, I love Heart Gold. It's such a good game. I mean, my advice straight off the bat is, if you want to get Sword and Shield and you don't have it already, get this. This is the definitive version of it, and I know you could probably, well, you definitely can pick it up cheaper, because the game goes on sale in places, and the DLC can be picked up for less than £27. I didn't pay 27 quid for the DLC. Having said that, if you head over to Amazon at the moment, you can pick up this combined back for £63 rather than 77. And that is a pretty gosh darn good price. You can still probably get it a little bit cheaper if you shop around and buy them separately, but that's still a pretty gosh darn good price. I think if you're looking to get into the games, I think it is a no-brainer that this is absolutely the version to go for. Because if you like Pokémon Sword, you're going to like the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra, and if you don't like them, it's a Pokémon game. By now, you probably know if you like Pokémon games or not. Now, here's the other interesting thing. I have a prediction that these games in the future are going to be very, very expensive. And the reason they're going to be very, very expensive is very, very simple. They are not going to sell well. Like, at all. The sales on these games are going to be very low. And the reason, again, is very simple. The vast majority of people that want Pokemon Sword, or Shield, have Pokemon Sword or Shield. They didn't wait until the game and both lots of DLC were out. And for what it's worth, this combined pack did actually drop a week or so after the second DLC. Most people aren't waiting that long. If they wanted a game, they bought the game. People who are very fringe Pokemon fans, there is still an excellent chance of what they are going to do is actually go and buy the 40 quid version, which can still be picked up for 40 quid, rather than going to pick up the 65 quid version. And again, it's hard to argue against that. A lot of more casual players are going to do just that, which should lead to very, very low sales, which should lead to games which in the future are going to be worth more than you paid for them. The funny thing is, an awful lot of people went, oh, Mario All-Stars, that's going to be a game that's expensive in the future. And I heard about a whole bunch of people who basically went and bought multiple copies of Super Mario 3D All-Stars, one to keep and play, and a few to put away because they'll be worth more in the future. Well, I have somewhat of a collector's mentality, and I like to think I know a fair bit about this. And the rule is extremely simple. If everybody is doing it, there is no chance that product ends up being expensive in the future. Think of it like back in the 90s, there was an X-Men #1. And this was in the comic book boom, and everyone went, right, well, this is going to be worth lots, and oh my goodness, that book sold millions and millions and millions of copies, and it's now worth naff all. I mean, Nintendo Life have shown us a little bit of an article here, which have said that Super Mario 3D All-Stars sold 5.21 million copies in 12 days. That game ain't going to be worth anything in the future. People like to look at it and go, well, it's a limited game. It's only being sold till March. It's going to be worth stuff in the future. But it's a super popular game that sold millions and millions and millions of copies. That is not going to be the case with this combined game here. The closest analogy we've got is the third versions. And if we head over to Wikipedia and have a little bit of a look at Pokemon sales figures, we can see that generally speaking, the third versions just do not sell well, like at all. The lowest selling main series Pokemon game is Pokemon Emerald with 6.32 million. That was the third version, of course, of Ruby and Sapphire. Coming up in second place, we had Pokemon Crystal at 6.39 million. Which was the third version of Gold and Silver. And then the third worst selling main series game was Pokemon Platinum, 7.06 million, which was of course the third version of Diamond and Pearl. And oh look, they tend to be a little bit more expensive. Honestly, the most expensive main series games we see at the moment are Black 2 and White 2. They did sell better than the third versions, but only just, coming in at 7.63 million units sold. You will be lucky to pick up Pokemon Black 2 for less than double the original price. It cost like 30 quid when it came out, and if you can pick it up for 60 quid nowadays, that's about right. And people are always looking for the next video game that is going to end up becoming like that, where it's going to balloon in value. Well, my recommendation, these. Because the fact of the matter is, they are games that very, very few people want or need. They are very expensive versions of a game that the vast majority of people who bought it already bought before this version was out. And like I said, if nothing else, if you want to play this with your kids, your grandkids, or just yourself in 20, 30 years' time, this is going to be the best version of the game, and you can laugh at all of your friends that can no longer access the DLC. And it will be amusing. Quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, nobody needs this game. You can pick up the base game, you can buy the DLC separately, you've probably bought the game if you want it. It is about as far from an essential game as you will ever find. But if you want my recommendation, I think it is a great purchase. If you're coming in new, this is the best version to get. If you want to put it away and wait several years for it to become far more valuable, it will do that as well. And there will come a time in the future where all of our Switches are broken and we're buying second-hand Switches to try and play old Pokemon games, and we are going to really want the version that's got the DLC built in. Or maybe at that point all of our accounts will be linked and we'll never lose a digital game again. I don't know. This is just a nice little opinion piece. Either way, I'd love to know your opinion on the matter, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.